Our guest this week, Lori McManus, my mother, and Rebecca Bonnet, my fiance. We've got a very special show for you folks. Let's go. Welcome to a very special show, the all-new podcast. I'm your host, Kevin McManus. This podcast will focus on arts, the creators and organizations which make life more beautiful, special, and unique. Through a series of interviews with professionals, we will discover struggle and success. You can find new episodes every Wednesday at 7 p.m. here on Spreaker or at facebook.com/a-very-special-show. In this first episode, we will focus on me and my struggles. I figured if I was going to ask any other artists to explore their struggles, I should do it first. So here we go. My name is Kevin. I'm a fortunate person. I'm an artist. More specifically, I'm a theater guy. For over 20 years, I've gotten to create with so many amazing people. About 2 years ago, I started a theater company with a few friends. Now I'm the artistic director of that company. I get to create whole worlds. My professional life is filled with success, too. I have a great job with good pay and benefits. I even get to serve on an arts board for our community. And to top it all off, my life is filled with love. My friends are brilliant and funny. My family is supportive and kind. And I'm in love with a beautiful person. And we have a warm home and a full refrigerator. All that is why this next statement may surprise some of you. My name is Kevin, and I'm an alcoholic. Currently, I am fully sober, and I have been for a little while. I haven't felt this good in a long time. At the risk of letting this episode become a personal therapy session, I'd like to go back. I want to go back to assess what happened. What went wrong? How did I lose track? In the late summer of 2011, I was living in a small studio apartment above the downtown streets of Olympia, Washington. My mother, who spent the entirety of her 20s and 30s raising me, finally found a slice of life all her own. Up in my apartment, I became obsessed with the art world. I started painting, making films, recording music tracks, and I attended every gallery opening and indie film screening that I could. I was 21 and living free on the banks of the Puget Sound, as I saw it. Mama, who had spent the previous 3 years worried about losing the family farm to the Great Recession, finally found a buyer for the property. When the financial burden lifted and a new romantic relationship was on the horizon, she was finally happy. And then I got the call. Mama's light green Hyundai Tucson was hit at high speed, sending it rolling into a ditch. The nurse who called me gave very little detail about her injuries, saying simply, "You should get here as soon as you can." I walked into the emergency room. A group of medical pros were crowded around the small space, and in the middle of it all, there, smudged with mud and dried blood, still conscious but not moving, was my mama. She saw me, so I got close. I was only going to allow her to see a smile. The roaring, wailing, emotional mess I would eventually become would have to wait. I wanted her to see that I knew she would be okay. I wanted her to know she would be okay. She could only say one thing over and over. "I'm sorry." For what? The crash wasn't her fault. We hadn't argued for a long time. She wasn't wasting anyone's time laying there smashed up on a table. What should she be sorry about? She lived thanks to the doctors at St. Pete's Hospital in that evening. That night, while she underwent many hours of surgery, I got drunk. I don't know if it's common for an alcoholic to know the exact moment when things went south, but I know. Before the night of August 20th, 2011, I drank a few beers here and there, and I definitely liked smoking pot. But after that night, the goal of each night, the goal was to be high and drunk. I imagined that I was carrying it off pretty well. I was sure I'd convinced everyone else that I was just partying and it was a phase. Yeah, I was boisterous, loud, obnoxious, sometimes friendly, sometimes very harsh. But it was just my 20s and I was having fun. The truth is, I was abusing drugs and alcohol, and I was abusing and losing friends. The absolute worst part of it all is that I quit art. I stopped auditioning, I put away the paint. There were no films, I made no music. As far as I was concerned, the galleries and the theaters were closed forever. For a few years, the cycle got progressively worse. The drinking became more dangerous, the drugs even more severe. Every once in a while, I flirted with the idea of sobriety, only to fall back into even heavier use. I wanted to live in a mental and emotional 0 point. I even ignored my mother as she healed for months on end. Mama reminded me of home. Home reminded me of loss. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good.
That's my mom, Lori McManus. We recorded this via Skype call, observing social distancing. She has reduced lung capacity, so I am particularly sensitive to her issues. This is the new podcast, and I've decided to splay my guts out on the table here a little bit, and hopefully you don't mind me putting our history on the line here.
Don't mind at all. I like you taking steps to be healthier and happy. So I'm all for it. I'm with you.
All right. Well, I've got a couple of questions just to kind of focus on what happened. When did you realize that I had a problem, drugs and alcohol?
In the initial year after my accident, I saw things spinning out of control in a way that I had never seen you behave before. And I was clear that there was a problem, which made me question whether I should have taken your teenage years more seriously. You know, just what I took as regular teenage partying. I wondered if I had, missed the clues and whatnot during that time.
Was there a specific event that occurred that just kind of illuminated the problem itself?
In the trailer, when you ended up coming to stay with us, a lot was going on, a lot was going on in my world. And you were just doing all sorts of going out and bringing people back into the trailer, and then, started periods of you avoiding me, and financial stuff where you had actually taken money that didn't belong to you, money in my account. And I just thought, this is getting pretty weird. And it just through the years got progressively worse, and a lot of moving. It just was a progression to the point where I finally had to say no when you had asked for something.
I'm reminded of the times that I used to show up to the house with black eyes, and you would ask me, and I'd tell you, well, I got into a little scuffle, when frankly I couldn't remember sometimes exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me now because I haven't had a black eye in many, many years and haven't been that kind of crazy in a long time. But that's something that I remember from back in those days.
Oh, definitely. In that first year or two, you must have had about 7 or 8 black eyes in about a year and a half. There was a lot going on. Was there an exact moment? I don't know that there was an exact moment, but it was a progression. I had to just try to hopefully talk to you about it on occasion. Was sort of thinking, oh, it's just a phase. He's 21, 22. And I decided to sell that property that you spoke about in your introduction. And decisions had to be made, and I brought a new person into our lives. And I just found myself going, man, he's just been hit with a whole lot, and he's in his early 20s, and he's gonna party like all of us do during that time, and that you would eventually work your way through it. Well, as you worked your way through your 20s, you really weren't working your way through it to the point where I was like, I don't know what I can do. I mean, there's not anything I can do for this adult human being.
My original response to my own issues was, well, it's just my 20s. Like I said, I'm going to be over it soon. It sounds like we both tried to allow some space for, youth or whatever you want to call that. But I think I actually kind of realized much earlier, when you're an alcoholic, your health is always on the line. And so my health was just, I mean, I never got a cold or anything when I was growing up. And all of a sudden I was getting sick regularly every year, and I wasn't doing theater. And I remember you were kind of particularly upset that I wasn't singing or I wasn't dancing or I wasn't doing any of that kind of thing.
From the time you were younger, I had read a book to have you participate in a lot of activities. And so we did. You did a lot of sports and music and dancing, and then finally you found acting. And over a period of years, that took the front seat to all your other activities. And you discovered this magic in arts, whether it be singing, dancing, acting, painting, taking pictures, music. The arts was where your heart and soul was. We got to watch you blossom in that. And when the moment came where you stopped doing any of that, it just floored me, and I knew something was the matter. So every opportunity I had, I would bring up to you to get you, maybe if you went and started participating again, maybe you'd find yourself.
Being creative is exactly what brought me out of the feeling of wanting to be absent, wanting to be at that mental and emotional 0 point that I talk about earlier in the show. Did you lose any respect for me due to these problems at the time?
Oh, I don't think I lost respect. Well, I guess trust and respect kind of go hand in hand. I definitely, for a good many years, lost trust. I think even through your life, sometimes because I had high expectations, and I know my personality. I'm a hard, kind of a harder person. And I think I fostered maybe less of an honesty thing between the two of us early on by my behavior. So we already had a little bit of a truth thing on occasion going on. Well, the further we got into your 20s and the alcohol and drugs and whatnot became a part of what you were doing, I think that just got really blown. Like the honesty of you coming to me and telling me you lost your wallet. I mean, I'd even look at you and go, I don't believe you. I'm going to help you pay your rent because I'm not prepared to let you live on the street. But I don't believe you, and I want you to know I don't believe you. And you would just go, really? I did. I lost my wallet. Well, this is like the 7th wallet you've lost this year.
I mean, to be fair, I actually did lose a lot of things. That was part of all the fun was I would lose very expensive coats and wallets and things like that. But also it would be because I was so drunk the night before and hanging upside down off of a tree and doing crazy stuff like breaking my wrists and things like this that I was losing those things. And so there was a little bit of a dishonesty in that I just lost it because I was somewhere. I lost so much, not just items, but so many friends due to this. I have a lot of great friends now, but I have some relationships that have been sacrificed and are more tense. I lost the trust of a lot of people back then as well, and I'm trying to regain that now. And of course, some people will never be able to trust an alcoholic again, which is totally understandable. If you could sit down with me at the height of my problems and say one thing, what would you say?
I always wanted to say, come back to me. Come back to me. Find yourself again.
After the break, we will see if I indeed found myself. You like what you're hearing? Good. Click follow, like, or subscribe. If you own a business, you can sponsor a show. Email me at averyspecialnetwork@gmail.com or call me at 360-584-2127. Thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting. Welcome back to A Very Special Show, the podcast. Again, I'm your host, Kevin McManus, and we're starting our journey by talking about my struggle with drugs and alcohol abuse. Before the break, we spoke with my mother about her perspective on the subject, and I want to make it very clear that while I can pinpoint my problems and when they began, I do not blame my problems on anyone but me. About 15 million people in the United States suffer from alcohol use disorder. Nearly 90,000 people die every year from alcohol-related causes. This is an illness. While these statistics let me know I'm not alone, it is I alone who can take it on. My struggles are uniquely my own, and it is my job to stand up and reclaim my life. Do you want to tell everybody who you are? Tell everybody who you are first.
My name's Rebecca.
And Rebecca, who are you?
I'm Kevin's fiance.
We also have Clover the dog and Bruno the dog here right now, sitting in on the session. Rebecca and I started dating in 2016. We met in theater. We were doing Spamalot the musical. I was playing Sir Robin, and she was in the ensemble. And we fell madly in love pretty much immediately, and we're inseparable from that moment on. Is that correct, or am I straying off?
I would say so.
Okay, well, did you want to give a little bit of history on the art and things that you do? You're a painter, and you do all these other... I'm getting the big hand wave no, the big head shake.
You didn't say I was going to have to do that.
Okay, so we're just going to have... I have a few questions just like with my mom, and Rebecca is mighty nervous, but we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do this. Okay, so dating, did you know I had a problem?
No. You seemed very healthy. You seemed very focused on taking care of yourself. You were always reading and doing push-ups at the theater.
I was getting fit for a musical.
I think you were vegan at the time, too.
I was.
And I think that well, I know you were living with your mom at the time, and I think that was a time that you were sober. But when we started dating, we started going out and going to bars and drinking, and I didn't think it was an issue for you, and you never talked about it, of course, so I had no idea.
If you didn't know, if you're not a theater person, casts like to get together after pretty much, from what I've experienced, every performance, and they like to go out and have a few drinks, just like any other social group. But theater people get really, really close really, really fast, and we're only together for, maybe up to 3 months, so people try to pack an entire lifetime of socialization into that small time, and so, that's what we do. When did you realize I had a problem with drugs and alcohol?
I think I really realized when I was introducing you to a friend, and it was in the evening, and we were meeting at a bar, and I was meeting you, and my friend was coming to meet us, and when I got there, you were already very drunk. And I remember realizing okay, maybe this is a problem. And I also remember feeling really disappointed.
And that this ties in. She is starting to cry. How did you feel when you realized that I had a problem?
I felt worried about you. I felt worried about myself, but mostly worried about you, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I didn't know what I would do about it. So I just hung in there.
Were there any moments when you thought the relationship was in jeopardy?
Several. Over a long period of time, I would say. I don't think I ever thought seriously about ending the relationship, but I thought about it. I thought about it a lot, but I could never actually see myself leaving you. And when I thought about it, it made me incredibly sad. Because I know who you really are, and that's not who you really are.
What made you stay?
The hope that you would figure it out and that we could have a good life together, because I love you and I love being with you. Your true self, not the person that is completely overwhelmed and controlled by something else.
And if you had a moment to talk to that drunk person that I was, and you could just say one thing, what would you say?
I have no idea, because that person doesn't really hear me. Someone asked me recently, actually, if I had any advice for them on how to deal with someone in their life that's close to them that has a drinking problem. And I said, number one, try not to make them feel judged, because that was huge for us. I know that you were judging yourself all the time, so if you felt like I was judging you, it was a huge trigger, and it caused even more problems in our relationship. That was the first thing I said, and the second thing I said was, in the end, this person has to figure this out on their own. We're all in charge of our own lives, and you can be there for them, and you can love them, but you can't figure it out for them. They have to figure it out, and they have to decide.
When you think about the future, what do you envision?
I envision a very happy life with you. And I wouldn't have been able to say that a month ago. So, it's good. It's very bright.
Anything
and
else?
I'm really proud of you. And I love you very much.
Anything else you want to say?
No.
So, since this show is about struggle and artists, do you have any... Because she's a painter, singer, dancer, theater person. Do you have anything that you struggle with that you would want to talk about while we're here?
I have depression and anxiety, which is not easy on a relationship either. And it's hard to talk about. I mean, it is.
Yep. That's where
I've only recently started being more open about the fact that I have depression, and it's not necessarily because I'm afraid what people will think of me. It's more like I don't want to seem like I'm complaining or that, anyone should feel sorry for me or whatever. Okay.
Well, we're going to end the on that high note.
Oh my God, I'm sweating.
and thank you to my mom and to Rebecca for being honest with me about their thoughts. And so why did I just spend nearly a half an hour talking about my problems? I'm not a celebrity. My story isn't particularly surprising or new or different. So what's this all about? What I hope to achieve is love. I want everyone listening right now to know that we all struggle. Life happens. Pain happens. We're not going to overcome all of our pain, but we can move forward from living our struggles every minute of every day. What will make this easier is if we look across to each other and bring as much love to our interactions as possible. And create. This podcast is about arts because I firmly believe that the arts can be the greatest force for healing and unity in the world. If I can get anything across to my audience, it's I hope that you get out and create. Do everything artfully. Try to see beauty everywhere and create beauty where there appears to be none. George Bernard Shaw set a standard with his statement, "Some see things as they are and ask why. Some dream things that never were and say why not." Find friends who live in the latter way. Dream, create, challenge yourself. Find friends with whom you can create whole worlds. Whole worlds. Friends who love you. Artists who care. And if you ever feel like you can't do it, that things are too hard and the struggles seem insurmountable, I'm here. We're here. We will use this podcast to form a new community based on love, compassion, and unity. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And I will talk to you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us for a very special show. Next week, my guest, rapper, and friend of the show, Sir Jalen Charles. You can find his music on SoundCloud. This has been a production of a very special network.